What is going on, everybody? It's the France, and we're here for UnScripted episode number 128 for your July the 19th, 2020. Last night was Slammiversary. If you watched that, and let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Of course, there were multiple surprises, multiple returns and debuts. Eric Young making his return in the main event. Heath Slater making his debut. The Motor City Machine Guns making a return to Impact Wrestling at the opening of the show. And EC3 teasing he is coming to Impact Wrestling. He'll be back on Tuesday. The Good Brothers, of course, made their first appearance live in front of nobody because Impact Wrestling doesn't use their talent like WWE or AEW does. And someone needs to tell them that it'd be much better if they actually used their talent as fans than doing an empty arena. I don't care what anyone says. Hell, for all I care, get some fucking video things out there, video monitors out there, and have fans watch the pay-per-view from home. I mean, the MLS returned, and I was watching a game the other day, and they had a video board up of all these people watching and cheering. You actually heard the reactions for the show, and I'm like, maybe WWE could do that, maybe AEW could do that, maybe even Impact Wrestling could do that. But let's talk about the biggest thing that happened at the start of the show. And when I mean start of the show, I mean before the show. An hour or two before Slammiversary went on the air. I'm sitting on Twitter. I got my phone out. After I'm doing a couple things on my Switch or, watching TV or whatever. I get my phone out. You see a bunch of political bullshit. You see a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff and all this other bullshit that's going on. Portland finally getting some of its mess cleaned up because the president actually did something. But a specific name popped up. Joey Ryan. We have not heard or seen anything from this sleazy piece of shit for about, a month and a half? We saw Joey Ryan's name trending, and I'm wondering, why is this guy's name trending? And then you find out, going to the dirt sheets and everything, that he put in almost an hour-long video on YouTube denying all allegations against him. Shaved his beard, shaved his mustache. Dude doesn't even look like Joey Ryan. I had to literally do a double take figuring out who the fuck is that. That can't be Joey Ryan. No way that's Joey Ryan. And again, yes, it's Joey Ryan. Did I watch the video? No. But Joey Ryan has reactivated his social media accounts and released a video denying his recent sexual assault allegations against him. Due to the allegations, Ryan was released from Impact Wrestling and closed down his promotion, Bar Wrestling. The video begins with Joey Ryan explaining that this video is for the fans. As reported, one of the allegations from a wrestler named Corina Mink, I don't no idea how to say her first name. She said she was once picked up by Joey from a banner point from the show, and he groped her while she was driving. The video, he says this, and I quote, This video is for the fans of mine who have shown me support throughout the years and continue to show me support to this very day. I feel like I owe you a bit of clarity so that you don't have to feel any guilt and you don't have to feel any shame for giving me your support. The reason I've been silent thus far is that my therapist asked me to take a mental break from social media, which a lot of people on social media need to do that ASAP. And my attorney asked me not to comment on any of these allegations because of the severity of some of them until he had a chance to review them and review all the evidence that I have to dispute them. And since no legal action is being taken, I'm going to address them in this video. Calls the allegations against him fabricated just for the speaking out movement. He's been attending therapy every week since the separation of his wife nearly 2 years ago. He also stated that he has actual evidence that can show he never acted criminally with sex, unlike these allegations. He continued and said, I also it was important to respect the movement and allow these women the opportunity to speak and be heard about how they feel and how they felt. But I do believe people should be held accountable for fabricating stories or changing the narrative of stories just so they can be a part of the movement. As many as you know from the initial statements, I've been in therapy since the separation with my ex-wife nearly 2 years ago. I took it very hard, and I've been doing a lot of self-reflection and self-realization and learning a lot about me. I attended therapy each and every week, and I'm getting better each and every day. I know that therapy is about progress and not perfection, but I do want to make one thing perfectly clear. I have never had sex with a woman without her consent. Now, Joey, that depends on what your definition of consent is. There's so many people who's like, oh, well, she was consenting. I know she was plastered and everything, but she came on to me, so we did it. That's not consent. Consent is two able-bodied, sound body and mind people consenting to having a sexual encounter. You cannot drug somebody. You cannot take advantage of somebody who is plastered off the rocker or high as can be, where they aren't going to have any single memory of what happened in that encounter. That is not consent. And just because you had consent the first time does not give you consent the next time. Joey Ryan comes off as someone who is doing damage control, trying to save face, trying to save his career that is dead on arrival. He's not going to be touched by anybody, hopefully for a very long time, if ever again. This guy has done enough to piss off his fans, piss off the wrestling world, and it's about time something has happened. The first time I ever saw Joey Ryan was back in the day, back 10, 15 years ago, TNA did a tryout thing on TV called Gut Check, where a talent would have a match, and then said talent would, the match was okay, but then talent would stand in front of a panel of 3, and then they would have to have 2 out of 3 votes go their way for them to get a contract. These, of course, were all scripted. It was decided beforehand whether this person was going to get a yes or a no. The only time that I remember the script being torn up is when Ric Flair was on the panel, and this guy, I don't remember his name, but this guy was from Canada, I believe, came in, did a gut check. He was supposed to be told no, no, and no, or yes, no, and Ric Flair was supposed to say no. Or it was supposed to be 2 no's and a yes. And this guy cut a hell of a promo. And Ric Flair on TV said, wow, you just changed my mind, and I'm going to say yes. So the guy was offered a contract because of that, which Impact Wrestling TNA at the time was pissed off about because he was from Canada. So they would have to work out with a visa and everything for this guy to have a contract. And of course, that was, I think, one of the last things Ric Flair did for Impact Wrestling TNA before they cut ties with him and he went back to WWE. But anyway, Joey Ryan was a member of this gut check. He lost his gut. He was told no by the 3 panel. Al Snow was on this panel, and Joey Ryan took offense to. I don't remember what Al Snow said, but he took offense to Al Snow. So they ended up having a match, I believe, at the next coming pay-per-view for them. And he was in TNA for a while, doing his sleazy gimmick, and then he disappeared. I'm surprised Joey Ryan lasted as long as he did. I figured this guy was going to be a flash in the pan, a gimmick that everybody's going to tire of very quickly, and then the guy is going to be done in the business before long, and he'll be off, selling carpet or working at a Burger King or working insurance, which apparently a lot of people do insurance after they're done with wrestling. I don't know what the fuck that's all about. But anyway. But he's been in wrestling ever since, and then all this stuff came out, and Joey Ryan has had not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 or more allegations from 17 or more different women. Now, I could see him coming out and saying, these 3 women right here, they're best friends, and they conspired against me to get me to fuck my career up, yada, 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 because I broke up with this woman, and I went to this woman, we broke up, and I went to the other one and broke up with her, and they don't like me, and that's that. I could possibly see that as a reason why somebody, and it happens. That's the thing about these allegations in the speaking out movement, just like this whole Black Lives Matter thing that's going on right now. There are people out there who are trying to use this Black Lives Matter thing for good. A very small portion of people are using it or trying to use this for good, for change, whereas others, and the majority of the people using this Black Lives Matter movement, are using it for their personal gain and nefarious means. When it comes to allegations of sexual abuse, of rape, of molestation, of manipulation, we can't just immediately demonize people and go, well, they're 100% guilty. No matter what this person has to say, they are 100% guilty. You can't do that. You have to see. We have to get all the facts. We have to get. We can't just sit there and go, well, this person's guilty, and then it turns out, hey, they weren't guilty. The person who said that was lying, and they know they were lying, and they only did it because they cheated on somebody, and they didn't want them to find out they cheated on them, so they wanted to make it seem like they were raped. They loved this person that they're accusing, but they pushed her. They didn't take their advances. They said, well, whoa, no thank you, I'm taken, or whatever, I don't have any interest in you. So they want to ruin their life. So many other things too that are something as well. It's just, like I said, if it was 1, 2, maybe even 3, I could see it. But 4, 5, 6, 7, they just kept coming. There's 17 at least. Common sense tells me and anybody else that you think most people are going, like, all these women are going to come out to conspire against you, Joey, because they loved you or something and you turned them down. Give me a break. Now get this. He says he has never acted criminally towards women. I have never acted criminally with sex, and unlike these allegations, I have actual evidence that can show you that. I also want to make clear that I have always been able to separate business from my personal life. Yeah, I've heard that one before, and then it turns out bullshit. I have never used any clout or any kind of influence I have invested to get people to do anything they did not want to do, or have ever used it for personal gain. But the amount of buzz that I can create when all these allegations started, I thought I was going crazy because I was reading all these stories about me that were very, very, very different from how I remember them happening. It's only when I went back and read old text messages, which, by the way, who keeps text messages from years before? Like, and tell me, Joey, is it the same phone that you had when all these allegations went on, or did you keep that old phone? Am I the only one who doesn't keep text messages just because, phone space? I don't know. And looked up old receipts, which who keeps receipts? That's another thing. I looked at old text messages and I looked at old receipts, and I'm like, okay, unless you're very frugal with your tax returns and everything, who the fuck keeps receipts? And after you're done with your taxes, if you kept all the receipts, because yes, you do need to keep those receipts for something like that. Why would you keep them? Why would you keep receipts for something that happened X amount of years ago unless you're trying to use this as a defense to clear your name? So that's something else right there that's a red flag. 2 red flags right there. I found that I have evidence that actually clear-cut evidence to dispute nearly, that's the key word, nearly every single one of these allegations against me. Again, red flag, looking up old text messages, because I don't know for the life of me anybody who keeps text messages from years before. I've actually had to delete text messages because my phone was getting full at one time. Who keeps old receipts? Now, I don't know when these allegations started. I don't know if it was say 5 years ago or 10 years ago. You really mean to tell me that you have receipts from all that time ago, Joey? Are you trying to say that we're stupid as people? Like, you're going to try and say that these people are lying because you have receipts from however long ago? I can see keeping something from a year ago, maybe. I mean, hell, when I was younger, this is a funny story. I used to work at Wendy's back in 2008, and I had my wallet, and for whatever reason, I don't know why, the Wendy's I used to work at had these very, very small just 1x2, like 2x3 receipts. They were like very small. And I would just put them in my wallet. And then just kept doing that and doing that and doing that without ever emptying out my wallet. That I can understand because it's just what it is. And my wallet got very fucking fat. Just from having all the receipts. I don't know why I did it. I stopped doing it. But it's like, and that wasn't like a 6-month period. But you mean to tell me that you still have receipts from whenever these allegations are being started with? I don't buy that one bit. Like, unless you knew you did something wrong and you needed these receipts to clear your name. That is the only reason you would keep these receipts from years past. That's just another red flag right there. It's like, you kept these text messages because you needed them to clear your name. You kept these receipts because you needed them to clear your name. That right there are 2 red flags that anybody who thinks and like looks at all this stuff and looks at all the evidence seems to be like, why would he keep those? Why would he keep those? Because he's guilty, he knows he's guilty, and he's trying to cover his ass. That is the only reason he would do that. So, I don't know what the full story is. I don't think anyone's going to really care. Joey Ryan is done, and it's the fact that he also... So, there's 3 red flags in that completely. 1, the text messages. Why the fuck would you keep them unless you know you're guilty of something, and you need these text messages to prove your innocence? 2, receipts from however long ago. Why would you keep those? And I mean, yes, you get a receipt. Like, if I walk down, if I'm using a card or something, and it tells me how much money is on my account left, I'm gonna need that receipt so I can keep track of that. But after I get all my tracking done, it's like, I'm getting rid of it. Why the fuck do I need to keep it? So the only reason he would keep those is because he's trying to cover his ass. And the 3rd red flag, you don't have enough evidence to clear you of all these accusations. Just nearly all. There's a difference between all and nearly all. So basically you're trying to tell me that you are guilty of something. You're guilty because what's your definition of nearly? If there's 17, you mean to tell me 16 of these are false and 1 is true? Which one's true? Which one of these 16 is true? Well, 17 is true. And nearly could be 2. Maybe 2 of these allegations are true. Maybe 3 of these allegations are true. What is your definition of nearly? Something doesn't smell right, and Joey Ryan obviously is trying to save his ass and damage control because, again, I don't know many people who keep receipts for years unless you're just one of those hoarders, which I'm sure if my grandmother had her way, she would keep every receipt she ever got. But that's neither here nor there. But it's just like, you kept all of this because, and I'll say it again, you kept all of this to prove your innocence even though you know you're guilty. So, again, let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. I don't buy Joey Ryan's apology, which he didn't apologize for anything. His trying to clear his name, honestly to me, feels like he is covering his ass. That is all it looks like and feels like to me, is that he's covering his ass. I'm sure we hear more of this. I'm sure I haven't seen or heard anything about his accusers, but I'm pretty sure we hear from them too. Maybe they haven't said anything right now because the lawyers are also trying to, work out what they're going to do. Are they going to sue him? Is he going to... Which, if you have all this evidence, where's the evidence? Where are these text messages? I'm pretty sure there was some in the video. Like I said, I didn't watch the video. Why would I want to watch this guy? But it's just, something don't smell right, Joey. Something don't smell right. But that is Joey Ryan coming back to television when nobody gave a fuck about him. And nobody cares anymore. So, if you all remember, Luke Gallows and Anderson was released on what was it, Black Wednesday? April 15th. And they have a new podcast, the Talking Shop podcast. Well, on that podcast recently, they went into detail on why AJ Styles a couple weeks ago was on his mixer calling Paul Heyman a bold-faced liar. So, as we know, they did get released. They had a new podcast. They vented about their experience being part of the roster, and Anderson are two of the recently released stars. Anderson opened up about how his interaction with Triple H, where the game appealed to his emotions in an attempt to keep the duo from signing with AEW. He questioned whether or not Triple H could have done anything to keep them from being released. The answer is no. During his Mixer stream a couple weeks ago, which, by the way, what's AJ Styles going to do with Mixer going, or bye-byes, what is it, very, very soon? He was documented calling Paul Heyman a bold-faced liar. Anderson and Gallows delved into the tumultuous situation involving Paul Heyman and the Good Brothers. In trying to get to the bottom of this, of them being let go, because it did feel fucking weird. So we started asking around, what the fuck happened? Carl asked, and then we hear, well, it was Paul Heyman's idea. And I was like, really? So we told AJ that. So AJ went to somebody and asked, is this Paul Heyman? Was this a Paul Heyman idea? They said yes. AJ went to Paul Heyman and said, did you fire these guys or did you put the word in to fire them? And Paul Heyman said, no, you have my word. Scout's fucking honor, brother, Gallows added as he flashes a text message at the screen. If I would have known that I would have gone to bat for them, Carl recalled Paul saying. And AJ went, okay. He went back to that first guy who goes, is this what happened? And the person goes, yes. So AJ goes into Vince and says, you got to tell me the truth. Is Paul the one who said to fire these guys? Vince told AJ, listen, they weren't on my list, but yes, this was a Paul Heyman idea. Apparently, he thought we were making too much money for what we were doing, which was being AJ Styles' lackeys. And he's a fucking liar and a piece of shit, according to Gallows. Anderson noted how he believes, and this one's really weird, he believes Vince McMahon could have done more to keep them on the roster. That's real simple. Don't fire them. If Vince McMahon really saw investment in a reason to have Gallows and Anderson on the roster, it's a Vince McMahon decision. It's funny how these guys are saying this is all Paul Heyman's fault, which, to an extent, yes, it's Paul Heyman's thing. If Paul Heyman goes to Vince McMahon and says, hey, Gallows and Anderson are not doing much. They're not featured in the tag team division. They're just being the backup to AJ Styles. They're being his muscle. We don't need them. We don't need to be paying these guys if they're not doing that much. So let's cut the fat and move on from here. And honestly, they didn't have anything for these two. These two should have never re-signed with WWE last year. But Paul Heyman, Vince McMahon didn't have to listen to Paul Heyman. Vince McMahon could have said, well, AJ, they're AJ's boys. We don't want to upset AJ, so we're not going to fire them. Vince McMahon didn't do that. Vince McMahon is the one who took the list of everybody and said, let go, furlough, let go. It doesn't matter. Paul Heyman could have sat up in that lock and that says, don't fire these guys. They AJ needs them. He's their heaters. He's their muscle. Don't fire them. And Vince McMahon still would have said, you know what, Paul? They're making too much money. We're going to fire them. If Paul Heyman did tell Vince McMahon that and said that they were making too much money and they need to be let go, yes, Paul Heyman can have some blame, but you can't 100% blame Paul Heyman for something that Vince McMahon has the final say in. Gallows mentions how AJ Styles never had the intention of traveling without his good brothers on the road. He explained that the loneliness is associated with being at the top guy in the WWE, especially when you don't go through the development system. AJ, he didn't want to be there alone. When you're at the top, very top, you don't have a lot of friends at the very top, especially if you're not a WWE bred talent. Especially if you're not in development talent with these guys going up and down the road for years and, getting that bond, which is absolutely true. AJ Styles coming into WWE was great for AJ Styles, was great for WWE. But without Gallows and Anderson, AJ doesn't really have that many guys that he can associate with. I mean, Kevin Owens was out in the Indies at one time. Daniel Bryan, same thing. But a lot of the guys in there have come through the WWE system. Seth Rollins did. Daniel Bryan did. Somewhat. He was in Florida Championship Wrestling. Oh, wait, no, he didn't actually. No, I'm sorry. He didn't come through the system. That's right. He was brought straight to the main roster with the Nexus thing or the NXT thing. But yeah, a lot of the guys you see, majority of the talents you see on TV nowadays have come through NXT. AJ's one of them who hasn't. Kofi was one of them who hasn't. Active right now, The Miz, Dolph Ziggler. Yeah, I think that's about it. Oh, the Usos, I guess, but Usos aren't really active right now. Yeah, I think that's about it for, like, full-time active people. Let's see here. AJ said to fucking bury Paul Heyman and tell the truth about it and the lies Heyman told, or why he couldn't work with him. He said he needed to move to SmackDown, which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny how AJ Styles wanted to move to SmackDown to get away from Paul Heyman, which wasn't a week or two later that Paul Heyman was removed from his position at TV. So AJ Styles wasn't going to work with him anymore anyway. If AJ Styles would have just hung around for about 2 more weeks on Raw, he wouldn't be the Intercontinental Champion, which would be a travesty, but he would not be dealing with Paul Heyman anyway. By the way, AJ Styles needs to be on SmackDown anyway because AJ Styles thrives on SmackDown, and AJ Styles on SmackDown feels like a glove, like a perfect glove. Like it fits like a glove on SmackDown. On Raw, he never seemed to fit. Even when they brought him to Raw last year in the Superstar Shakeup before all that bullshit with the Fox draft, which really wasn't a draft, it was just, hey, remember that this person was on Raw? They're still on Raw. Hey, remember this person was on SmackDown? They're on SmackDown. That's what that basically was last year. And the bad acting of those executives for Fox and USA was so fucking bad. But that was what that was. But AJ's back where he belongs, and he's the Intercontinental Champion. Now, hold on. Okay, I gotta talk about this because this came into the news a couple days ago. Kenny Omega, one half of the AEW World Tag Team Champions, and has faced a lot of critics since AEW started. A lot of people were hoping to get the cleaner, the guy from New Japan who would have 5-star classic after 5-star classic and be the top guy from the start, and he really hasn't done that. Well, a former WCW, in quotation marks, star says that Kenny Omega has failed on American television. Who the fuck do you think this is? When Kenny Omega was a free agent in early 2019, the professional world was eagerly anticipating his next move. Even John Cena showed fans on Instagram with a picture of Omega, along with several cryptic messages. Omega reportedly turned down a lucrative offer from WWE before joining the upstart AEW as an EVP and full-time wrestler. After conquering the Japanese circuit and earning a cult-like following in Mexico, Omega was finally about to become a weekly fixture on American national television. It's been close to a year since they debuted on TNT, and former WCW superstar, and I use that term very loosely, Disco Inferno, aka Glenn Gilberti, and Conan believe that Omega's stock has dropped significantly. While Omega's got majority over in Mexico and Japan, he has failed on American television because his promos aren't on the level of other top guys. Also, he has not been pushed as a star, but just another guy who can work. There are 18 other guys who know how to work. Omega doesn't stand out in any way. Conan said on his podcast, Keeping It 100 with Conan. Inferno mentioned that unlike in Japan where the focus is squarely on equality of matches, wrestling on American TV is very different and requires a wrestler to build their character on a weekly basis. If you're an independent wrestler or wrestling in Japan, it is night and day to transition to weekly American television. As opposed to just having matches, you have to deliver on promos, sell facial expressions, and build up a lot of skills on a weekly basis. Disco Inferno went on to contrast Omega to Jericho and Jon Moxley, who both landed in AEW after achieving significant success in WWE. Omega doesn't cut a good promo. That is why he has become difficult for him to elevate himself to the level of Jericho and Moxley, because his mic skills are not close to those guys. Also, he doesn't understand the psychology of what you have to do in the ring and mic on American television. Conan, who has worked closely with Omega in Mexico AAA, felt that AEW had failed to build an aura around Omega and have not distinguished him from the rest of the roster. He said, the fans in Mexico love Kenny because we build an aura around him and they want nuts every time he steps through the curtain. That has not happened in AEW. Gee, Conan, it's kind of hard to have fans go nuts for you when we're in the middle of a fucking pandemic where we're shut down for bullshit reasons. Echoing Conan's view, Disco Inferno was critical of the way AEW has booked Omega, especially while pitting the cleaner against jobbers in the undercard. Your character is not doing well when you can't even get over in squash matches. It's not about making the other guy look good, but actually getting over as a superstar. AEW hasn't done that with Omega. I'm sorry. Disco, you don't even know what it's like to be a superstar. Your ass decided to, latch on to other people, to ride their coattails, to try and make yourself feel like you're a star. You have never been and never will know what it's like to be a top guy in a wrestling promotion. Second, those aren't squash matches. Kenny Omega is good enough to let these guys have some, he's good enough to help build other guys to build their stock. So, say when this pandemic shit ends, those guys will have their phones being ringing off the hook saying, hey, I saw you with that match with Kenny Omega. Want to come work to this show? Hey, I saw you work with Kenny Omega. You want to come work this show? Yada, yada, yada. Same old, same old. Glenn Gilberti doesn't know what it takes to be a star. After feuding with likes of Jericho, Moxley, and Pac in the early days of AEW, Omega as one half of the World Tag Team Champions have been predominantly used in the tag division. Omega's last single match on TV came against Alan Angels on April 22nd. That was a fantastic match. And that was him getting Alan Angels over. And oh, by the way, what is Alan Angels doing now? He's a member of the Dark Order, if I'm correct. Isn't he 5? Isn't he going up against Hangman Page this coming Wednesday? So yeah, Kenny Omega is doing his fucking job, getting other people over. Kenny Omega is fucking Teflon. Kenny Omega will build his aura when he gets to it. He's getting other people over. This is the thing when it comes to a new promotion that Glenn Gilberti obviously doesn't get. When TNA Impact started as a promotion, what did they rely on more? They relied on big stars. Who was one of their first World Heavyweight Champions? Was it not Ken Shamrock? Yes, I believe Ken Shamrock, when the NWA title was first won, he won the title first. So, can someone tell me why they did that? Why would you give the NWA World title to a big name like Ken Shamrock? To build your fucking company. Why was Chris Jericho given the AEW World Championship? To build the company. To have a big star who is known on TV. You need those big stars to put other people over. That is what Kenny Omega is doing. That is what Chris Jericho does. That's what John Moxley's... I don't think John Moxley's actually doing that, but that's neither here nor there. Kenny Omega is helping build the foundation for the future of this company. Kenny Omega doesn't need to be world champion yet. He will in the coming year or so. Glenn Gilberti doesn't know a damn thing about getting talent over. The guy sat in the middle of the fucking ring, did his little disco dance every once in a while, and tried to be a fucking talent who rode the coattails of other actual big stars. Glenn Gilberti doesn't know a damn thing about how to be a big star or how to build a big star. Or he wouldn't be he wouldn't be doing a goddamn podcast. He would be asked to come back and working in all these other promotions. But he's not. Give me a fucking break. It's just so fucking stupid that he thinks that he can even think that he knows what the hell's going on. Could Kenny Omega have come in, won the World Heavyweight Championship, beat Chris Jericho at Double or Nothing, went to All Out and beat Hangman Page and became the first ever World Champion? Yes. Could he have dominated and beat every single person who came up against him? Yes. You know what would have happened? You motherfuckers would be sitting on your podcast saying, wow, look at Kenny Omega, this selfish piece of shit, not putting anybody else over, making AEW the Kenny Omega show. The guy can't have it either way. It's so fucking stupid that you think that you can just sit there and criticize this guy who's going out there help cultivating and building the tag team division right now, and also when he's having a singles match, helping get other guys over. When it's a squash match, it'll be a squash match. The match with Alan Angels, which was a fantastic match, was not a squash match. It wasn't meant to be a squash match. It was a tryout match for Alan Angels, and guess what? He works for AEW, just like Ricky Starks, who had the first mystery opponent for Cody Rhodes, that wasn't supposed to be a squash match. That was supposed to be a tryout match. And guess what? Ricky Starks got a fucking contract, and now he works for AEW. They're slowly building him up to be a pivotal talent later on. It's just so fucking stupid that a guy who rode people's coattails for years thinks he knows what it takes to be a talent, a major talent in a professional wrestling company, because trust me, he was not. He never was and was never going to be. So, let's go back to Gallows and Anderson for a minute, because they did on Talking Shop as well mention what the original plan was for them, how they went to AEW last year. Basically, it's this. And it also come to find out that 6 months, 9 months or so, 8 months into their contract, they wanted to leave in 2016. Remember that episode of Monday Night Raw where I think it was them versus Enzo and Cass, or the B team, whichever one of those teams was, and which Gallows ended up with a pumpkin on his head? That was the day they were done. That was the day they wanted out. They wanted to go back to Japan. They wanted to get out. I wouldn't be surprised. That killed a lot of integrity they had left. But last year, they were talking for months with the Bucks and Kenny. They met them a couple times at house shows and everything, or before house shows and everything. The original plan for that first episode, where we saw the formation of the Inner Circle, was supposed to be Gallows and Anderson coming out, the Bucks and Omega already being out there or coming out next. All of them two sweeting, and then Gallows and Anderson beating the living shit out of the Bucks and Kenny Omega. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega getting destroyed by Gallows and Anderson? That would have been great. But that begs the question, what would have happened to the Inner Circle? Would it have been, instead of Santana and Ortiz, Gallows and Anderson? I don't know. It's like the ending we got, which saw Sammy Guevara, Santana, Ortiz, Hager, and Jericho all come together as this big group that we found out the next week as the Inner Circle. What would have happened had Gallows and Anderson been there? They had this all written out, the Bucks did, and they had to rewrite all of it because these guys did not come to AEW. They re-signed with WWE. Now, of course, the reason that they re-signed is Triple H smooth talked them into keeping their jobs, because he was like, he was talking to Anderson, I believe, and he's like, when I see you kids, and AEW might not make it. AEW might not be something that succeeds, which could be true. I mean, yes, if you have a month to write out what you're going to do for a show, you could put on a pretty good show, like Double or Nothing was. Just like All Out was. Fight for the Fallen, Fighter Fest were meh, they were meh shows. But going from writing a show and booking a show with a month in advance to every single week, you have to write and have shows written out every single week, and not insult your fans. Go and put on a great show and give your fans something more. That could have all crashed and burned, but it didn't, as we know. So having those guys stay in WWE, they of course feel like that maybe there's some heat with those guys, because the Bucks were like, what the fuck? We had all this written out. We were going to do this cool angle. You guys were going to come in, beat the shit out of us, and you stayed. You did not come. Now, of course, Anderson and Gallows feel like that is the biggest mistake they ever made with re-signing. And it kills Anderson, I think, to this day, that he did not get to do that angle. He did not get to go destroy 2 of his best buds. Or 3 of his best buds. Because basically, as we know, when it came last year and WWE saw talent were not resigning, the number kept going up. They kept going up. They kept going up with the number when it came to price. How much are we going to have to pay you for you to stay? And that is what happened. What are we going to have to do to pay you to stay? Now, they're in Impact Wrestling. Who knows what's going to go on there? Now, another thing, speaking of Impact Wrestling, apparently They have been Scott D'Amore has been talks with Gallows and Anderson since they were released. The original plan for Gallows and Anderson coming out of Slammiversary was going to be, apparently, Tessa Blanchard was going to retain the Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, and then these two were going to beat the piss out of her. It was their idea, and they were going to do it to get that nuclear heat. But of course, Tessa Blanchard was fired, stripped of the Impact Wrestling Heavyweight Championship, and now that belongs to Eddie Edwards, who won last night. So, that's another one of those, how would Impact Wrestling look if their new guys, these two guys that they just got to come, beat the hell out of the world champion who happened to be a woman? I just don't know how well that would have worked in 2020. You see all the anger and vitriol you see with all these protests and everything. That would have been something that that might have worked in Japan or something, but I don't think that would work over here. That's just me. So Gallows and Anderson could have been in AEW, attacking the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, rewriting the entirety of the beginning of AEW on TNT. And then they could have came to Impact Wrestling and beat the hell out of the world champion at the time, Tessa Blanchard, if things would have went the way they were originally supposed to be. But, as we know in the professional wrestling world, plans can change. Let's talk about this swamp fight we're going to be seeing tonight. They filmed the swamp fight about 2 hours outside of Orlando from Thursday night into Friday morning, which of course they did. Wrestling Inc. has learned that filming lasted between 6 to 7 hours. Multiple takes were done to get various angles needed for editing purposes. So the same part was done multiple times, like a movie, to get all the angles. The match will probably be edited down to approximately 20 to 30 minutes. They were told that several reptiles were used for filming the segment, including an alligator and snake. For the finish, they were told, and Wrestling Inc. that is, that it's something like Jason for Friday the 13th in a horror movie where someone is taken away or disappears. That person, of course, will return to continue the feud. Wyatt had many ideas for the match and adjusted things to make them work. His mind was said to always be working on how to get to the next step. Vince McMahon was not involved with the match, which of course he wasn't. He wasn't involved with the Boneyard match, so maybe unlike the travesty that was the Backlash cinematic match, which was the Vikings versus the Street Profits versus Ninjas with the Taira Tozawa. Maybe, just maybe, this one will have this be at the standard, standards that the Boneyard match is, because quite honestly, the Boneyard match is the standard and hasn't been topped yet. So, one more thing here. It looks like No Way Jose has got a new name and look. Former WWE star No Way Jose has taken to Twitter and released a video debuting his new ring name. And look, he will now be going by Levi Valens. Time for a change. Control your narrative. Free Levi Valens. Valens right alongside. It's interesting to note that the Control Your Narrative hashtag is a reference to EC3's recent vignettes after being free to move on from his WWE talk. WWE. Levy even starts off his promotional video watching one of EC3 videos as posted and finishes the video by saying, "You've been warned. I am essential. I pledge fidelity." Yada yada yada. So, No Way Jose is no more. As he mentioned a while ago that he is not. He denounced that name so long ago. Where he goes, who really cares? He was a nobody. No Way Jose was a nobody. We'll see what Levy can do and if he can shake off the No Way Jose stink that WWE left with him. And, this one should be interesting. Excalibur on which AEW stars have been affected most by COVID-19. Excalibur joined the sports bubble with Jensen Karplast week to talk about the changes AEW has seen in response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic bullshit. Excalibur mentioned how real-life engaged couple Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford have really stepped up their game during these challenging times. He sees bright future for both of these stars if they continue with their momentum. Kip Sabian, he's one of the names that I mentioned that really kind of stepped up, and he proved that he's somebody that can be counted on, Excalibur noted, not just as being there, but also rising to the occasion. I think this business. I think he's a bright future for this business, as well as his fiancee Penelope Ford. I think she would admit that when AEW started, she was not among one of the best women on the roster in terms of in-ring performance. She still is not, but she's improving every single time we see her. Which, by the way, where have these two been? But over these last few months, she's grown as a performer, not only in her ability, but also in her confidence on herself. She had an absolutely fantastic match on her July 1st episode when she challenged for the women's title. I think it was a match that fans were excited for, but they had the reservations, and she preferred before it, and Sheeta absolutely outkicked the coverage in the ring in that regard. Excalibur also noted that real-life brothers Ray Phoenix and Pentagon and the Lucha Bros were separated from the United States and went into quarantine because Pentagon lives in Mexico while Ray lives in the United States. He's happy that the duo can finally be reunited and go back to doing what they loved the most about performing. I think the Lucha Bros, who are the two real-life brothers, they were born in Mexico City. Ray lives in the United States, Pentagon lives in Mexico, and they've been traveling for perhaps the past 6 or 7 years with each other every single week. They are constantly in each other's presence, and they couldn't see each other and so I know what they came back to TV and were able to get started and feel kind of normal again for them. So they started to feel kind of normal again for them, and they're really huge. And so it's some of the best in-ring performance that we have put, but it's just a personal level. If you use, so of course Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian have been defected. They actually were big shining spots in this because a lot of people were gone, as we know. People like the Dark Order, Stu Grayson, Evil Uno were gone for a while due to this pandemic. They both live in Canada, apparently. Lucha Bros, like Ray Phoenix was around by himself for a while, but of course, he got injured. Then we didn't see him again until Pentagon finally made his return a couple weeks ago. Pac is still stuck in the UK. I hope he can finally get out of there eventually. And it's just it's just like professional wrestling. That's one of those things. When somebody can't be there, you have to step up, or if there's a spot, if you step up, it's going to help you in the end. And that is what Penelope Ford has been doing. That is what Kip Sabian was doing. Now, we haven't really seen Kip Sabian outside of that match being on the outside for his fiancée in the match against Hikaru Shida since Jimmy Havoc went to therapy or went to rehab. I don't know what the state of that's going to be. They were gelling as a tag team, the Super Bad Squad as they're called, which was supposed to be a Super Bad Death Squad, I think. But yeah, they were. That is what they were doing, and now I don't know what they're going to be doing. I'm glad to see that they're getting some time. It's great to see Phoenix and Pentagon back. That match against FTR this past week was great. So, yeah. By the way, Vic Joseph, if you're wondering where he's been, he actually made his return to 205 Live this past Friday, so it's great to see him back. He was booted from the announce desk at Monday Night Raw a couple months ago. Then he went on to supposedly be calling Cleveland Cavalier games for a local radio affiliate, and then, of course, the pandemic happened, and we haven't seen him since until this past Friday. So if you are somebody who watches those, there you go. By the way, SmackDown ratings and Raw ratings. Raw hit the lowest in the show's history again. SmackDown did no better with a 1.893 million views overnight rating, and the ratings continue to fall. WWE, it's not the pandemic. It literally isn't the pandemic. NXT and AEW, over the last 3 weeks, have hit their numbers, and NXT has hit its numbers pre-pandemic. AEW is floating around with its numbers like close to pre-pandemic, which of course they were. Man, if the pandemic would have waited until April, just saying, even though I know no disease waits for you, but if they would have waited if this whole pandemic thing wouldn't have happened till April, and we got Blood and Guts when Blood and Guts was advertised, I guarantee that AEW on that episode on that night would have been over 1 million viewers, and NXT on the USA Network probably would have been canceled because they would have had nothing to combat that. But then, of course, as we noted, the pandemic happened. We lost out on that. Brody Lee made his debut in front of nobody. Matt Hardy made his debut in front of nobody. And here we are, all these months later, And we're still going through this bullshit because they want to lie to you and they want to make you think that everything that you're seeing and what they're telling you is the truth. But anyway, let's see here. What else do we talk about? Heath Slater make his debut on Impact Wrestling. Of course, afterwards, him and Rhino had their reunion, and then Scott D'Amore told him, hey, you don't work here, so get out of here. So, what else are we going to talk about tonight? Let me see here. I'm not even going to talk about the FTR stuff because since everybody likes to talk about it, let's talk about the AEW ratings versus NXT ratings. As it was first reported that Fight for the Fallen episode of AEW scored the strong win over NXT this past week. Fight for the Fallen scored 788,000 viewers, up 10% from last week's, topping the 631 viewers, which is minus 17% got by NXT on the USA Network by 25%. This is the best number by AEW since the May 27th post-Double or Nothing episode, which featured an appearance by Mike Tyson and Gary T and garnered 827,000 viewers for AEW. For NXT, this was the lowest number since May 13th episode, as well below the 730 viewers that averaged in June. AEW, as usual, won every single quarter in total viewers. The main event featuring AEW champion Jon Moxley defending his title against Brian Cage was the highest rated quarter with 844,000 viewers, and was the first time in a while where the main event performed the best. AEW lost viewers throughout the night, first hour before finishing strong late in the show. The lowest rated quarter of the sixth was the sixth, which was 743,000 viewers, which was featured Allie and Brandy Rhodes versus MJ Jenkins and Kenzie Page. That match had no business being on Fight for the Fallen. That match deserved to be on Dark and Dark alone. Sorry. The second lowest was actually Orange Cassidy and Chris Jericho's segment, which was garnered 765,000 viewers. Jericho versus Orange Cassidy is not a money draw, no matter what they want to try and tell you. For NXT, the opening segment with Keith Lee was a high point for the show with 693,000 viewers. Lee was also in the lowest quarter, which was the fourth, that scored 608,000 viewers, which featured the start of the Lee versus Dijakovic match. AEW beat NXT by, get this, 107% in the 18-49, and that's not a typo. Scoring a .29 rating compared to NXT's dismal 1.14. AEW ranked 5th in the demo for the night, while NXT ranked at 49th. That is pathetic. Gee, why do you think NXT won the last 2 weeks at least? I don't know about that week before Great American Bash because that's an anomaly. But you want to know why AEW lost the last 2 weeks in total viewership before this week? Because NXT posted their main event with no commercials in back-to-back weeks. What people were doing for the Great American Bash and Fyter Fest was simple. When they went to commercial break, they would flip to see what the other show was doing. They were flipping back and forth. The data shows that. But when you flip that channel from AEW to NXT and there's no commercial break for you to flip back, what are you going to do? You're going to stay there and watch that. But NXT and USA Network could not continue to do that. They can't just go, well, we have Tegan Nox versus Io Shirai in the main event. Let's make that commercial free. Then you're going to eventually have your sponsors and people who you're supposed to be making money for going, hey, wait a minute. We're paying you this much money to run our ads and you're going commercial free for a whole 25, 30 minutes? So they got it for 2 weeks. They won those 2 weeks, and then what happened? Back to normal business. AEW once again went every quarter in 1849. The Moxley Cage title point was also the highest point in that demo with 407,000 viewers, while the end of the FTR vs. Lucha Bro match was the low with 372,000. The Jericho Cassidy segment fared better in the demo than in total viewers, as it was 5th best quarter. Jericho's segment with Cassidy has not been performing as well as Jericho's previous segments, as Jericho would routinely score the best quarter on the shows. Opening segment on NXT with Keith Lee promo was the highest rated, 18-49 with 208,000 viewers. The second quarter, Cameron Grimes and Damian Priest, and the 7th Robert Stone segment, start of Io Shirai vs. Tegan Nox, were tied for the lowest quarters in the demo. Robert Stone is an abomination. Robert Stone's entire gimmick and everything they're doing with him is a travesty of epic proportions. Robert Stone is obviously a WWE taking shots at Tony Khan and trying to make Robert Stone be a laughingstock. That is what they're doing with Robert Stone. They're using him to make fun of Tony Khan and try and get you to go, hey, look, Tony Khan, this is what Tony Khan would be like if he was a manager. That is what they're trying to do, and it's backfiring on them every single week. In addition, and in 3-week winning streak for WWE, NXT and total viewers, AEW won all of them except 50+, which 50+ has been carrying NXT completely. WWE has to do something, because if they lose the 50+ demo, which I don't know how close they would be, boy, the NXT would be in trouble. They mailed 18 to 49 demo was insanely one-sided, as AEW topped NXT by 1,066% in the demo. AEW had 70,000 viewers from last week, while NXT had, and this is not a typo, 6,000. AEW had 70,000 viewers from that demo. NXT had 6,000. That's horrible. Out of this entire, there was 328 million Americans, people living in this country. I don't know how many men in that demo are living in this country, but out of that entire number, 70,000 for AEW, only 6,000 for NXT. That's bad. And that is the male 18 to 34 demo, which is in that 18 to 49 demo of Raw. That is crazy that NXT was getting its ass kicked. I mean, it's always funny, and I find this funny because up until NXT went to the USA Network, we didn't have 18 to 49 or 50+ or all these demos for everyone to talk about who's watching NXT on the WWE Network. We had none of that. I mean people in the IWC, the YWC, whatever community you want to, from what I've seen, have always seen NXT as the cool alternative brand to Raw and SmackDown. And then we come to find out that that's not the case, because the 50+ who have to be in wheelchairs or eating their tapioca pudding or drinking their prune juice are the ones watching NXT, while the cool kids are watching AEW. It's just really crazy what you find out when you actually sit there and see all these demos. Because, hell, that first episode, again, like NXT versus AEW, was like, that was a real telling of everything. And every single week after that, NXT wins the 50+, AEW has won everything else. And then, another reason in that first week that AEW lost to NXT when it came to the overall viewers. Who was in the main event? Sasha Banks was in the main event. Who had the most viewers in that first week? Sasha Banks' segment versus Io Shirai. Then you had that double main event, the double title match, champion versus champion, even though it was spoiled, and I still to this day believe that WWE did that on purpose. Because why else would you have, you really think somebody in their fucking performance center is going to be approved to take a picture of Keith Lee winning the WWE North American and NXT Championship and making him a double champion? Wow. Anybody who thinks that wasn't done on purpose, you need to get your head examined. WWE needs to take NXT off of USA Network. They're not making money with it. See, here's the difference between Raw and NXT. Raw is keeping the lights on in USA Network. That's why they have that $1 billion deal with them. That's why when SmackDown went to Fox, and Fox was also wanting to get Monday Night Raw, USA's like, whoa. No, you can have SmackDown because we don't give a shit about SmackDown. We just took it because that's what the bosses wanted to do at the time. But you ain't taking Monday Night Raw. Monday Night Raw is what keeps them keeps the lights on, because they don't have they don't have much of their own programming. The only time USA Network really doesn't need Raw is when they come up with their own television shows, which I don't think they're going to be doing much of anymore because Peacock is a thing now. And USA Network is a part of the NBC Universal. So, yeah. But, yeah. The NXT brand has been so, like, NXT used to be, in my opinion, was the cool brand. Was the brand to watch when you're tired of watching shit on Monday and Tuesday at the time. You have Wednesday to clean and cleanse all that as you get your helping 1 hour of NXT. And every week, I'm going to say 95.9% of the time on Wednesday nights, you would get a better show. And you would get that show that you go, that's like, yeah, that's good professional wrestling. They had storylines that made sense. They weren't doing garbage like this Robert Stone bullshit. That is clearly a Vince McMahon directive. AEW has come along, and AEW has showed you how to build stars, how to have tag team wrestling that actually fucking matters, even though NXT at one time had the best tag team division in all of professional wrestling, but now they don't even have one. Who's in their tag team division? Indus Imperium, Breezango, which is a joke tag team anyway, they're not meant to take seriously. The Undisputed Era is probably not going to be there anymore. They really don't have anybody for that tag team division. Whereas in AEW, you have FTR, you have the Lucha Bros, you have Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy Jurassic Express. You have Santana and Ortiz, you have the Young Bucks. You have all these huge tag teams. You have, you have Omega and Hangman, who are the tag team champs. You have the Best Friends. H2, the Hybrid 2 are nowhere to be found right now because they're in Mexico. Stuck in Mexico still for some reason. But yeah. And NXT is just falling by the wayside. And every time you watch them, they feel more and more like a WWE main roster light than they look like this time last year. Not even a full year ago. We're getting close to a full year of NXT on the USA Network, and every single passing week, they feel less and less like what NXT used to be. Because every single week, Vince McMahon takes his grubby, stinky, smelly hands and just puts his hands into the pie, the NXT pie, and just smushes it around more and more and more. NXT is going to just become... There'll be a time, because WWE does this, there'll become a time where Vince McMahon says, well, we tried with NXT and NXT failed, so we need to cancel this show. And they cancel NXT. And the talent in NXT doesn't get the exposure it used to get because NXT, Vince McMahon has given up on NXT and doesn't want to see it be used anymore. They'll still have the Performance Center, but we won't see NXT anymore, and that would be a Vince McMahon decision. He could at any time. Vince McMahon could walk into Full Sail and be like, well, you have your Performance Center, you have your talent, but we're going to cancel the NXT show. So you're just going to have to do whatever you can with them. We're going to, it's not going to be on USA anymore. It's not going to be on the network. You can have the only people who are going to see NXT are going to be the ones who go to the shows whenever these things open back up. And Vince McMahon could do that at any time. He literally could. But we'll see what happens. And it's just funny because everybody waits for those ratings to come out, wait for Brian Alvarez to put, hey, NXT did this, AEW did this, so they can sit there and have a big argument. Here's a good idea. As Brian Zane says every single week on his Wednesday Night Warfare. Like what you like, don't be a dick, watch what you want, and just be happy that you have professional wrestling on Wednesday night. There's still good parts about NXT. Not as many as there used to be. But if you like NXT, watch NXT. If you like AEW, watch AEW. It's not that fucking hard. But I'm getting out of here. Hit that subscribe button. Comment down below. Like or dislike this video. Find me on Twitter at The France Club. Find me on twitch.tv/The France Club. Find me on Instagram at The France Club. And I will see you guys tonight for the horror show at Extreme Rules. Until then, my name is The France, and I'll see you guys later.